We are live around the felt, our championship weekend predictions. Joining me tonight is my co-host, Reagan Loer. Reagan, big day for you and your Jets, brother. You got to be feeling good today.
Yes, sir. Aaron Glenn is in the building, and he is not leaving. He has signed a 5-year deal with us, so I'm excited. And not only that, he wanted to be there, and the fact that he was a former player, former All-Pro even, so did a lot for our organization as a player, and now is going to do a hell of a lot more for our organization as a coach. So I'm fired up. For all you naysayers out there, I don't care. I don't care what the recent Lions game was, where they're, allowed 45 points. Because guess what? When your offense turns the ball over 5 times, and when, your defense is a shell of itself because you have injuries after injuries after injuries. I mean, if you look at the beginning of the season and what that defense looked like, it was playing on all cylinders. So I'm excited. A lot of people kicked back with is Robert Saleh 2.0? And that's fair. But, at the end of the day, there were some more proven options we could have gone with. But, I mean, why not give a guy a shot? Because, at the end of the day, yeah, there are guys who have coached before, like Mike McCarthy. And, yeah, he won the Super Bowl. But, is that really the direction we want to go? I mean, I kind of want to close the door on Rodgers and not even give the opportunity for it. Where if you bring in Mike McCarthy, that might open that window back up. And I'm ready to close that door.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. Why are people saying this is Robert Saleh 2.0? Just because he's a defensive-minded coach? 4 of the last 5 head coaches the Jets have hired have been defensive-minded guys since Rex Ryan. The only offensive guy was Adam Gase.
And that was awesome. That was peak fandom right there with Adam Gase.
Yeah, I'm
peak
sure
fandom.
It was.
Because I even had a couple, a couple people were like, oh, why not Cliff Kingsbury? I was like, well, he's working out well in Washington, but at the end of the day, it's like, let's not forget about what he did in Arizona and the collapse he had there. I mean, some guys I feel like at this point are just meant to be coordinators. I love the idea of giving a guy who's never coached before the chance, because you never know. I mean, look at Dan Campbell. I mean, but even though they haven't made it to the Super Bowl, I mean, he's completely turned around that franchise. The first year was bad. Second year, they almost made the playoffs. And then year 3 and year 4, they're top teams in the NFC. So that's why I love it. Hopefully we can turn it around. I would like them to kind of rebuild and understand that he's got to lay the foundation. So I hope we don't bring in a veteran this year. I hope we either draft someone or, I don't even know. I just want the rebuild to start. Don't delay it. Just start the rebuild.
Yeah, I think Aaron Glenn was a good hire here. Don't look at the Detroit Lions defense this season and statistically, because they were so beaten down. There were certainly ups and downs during Aaron Glenn's tenure for that defense, but all words coming out of NFL circles are this dude is a leader of men. And I think that's what the Jets need right now, because you look at their roster and they have so many really good young players that I think they almost needed a guy like this that's going to set the culture right. I feel like they were way too talented to falter like they did this season. And that has to go back to the locker room and guys just not vibing with each other, not being fully bought in, not putting in the extra hours. And I think when Robert Saleh got fired, things kind of spiraled in that locker room. Aaron Glenn, I believe, is going to be a good hire for the Jets. And, I mean, we'll see how quickly he can turn this around. See if he can make the playoffs next year with this team. Certainly will depend on the quarterback position. If I had to guess what they're going to do, I'd guess they roll with Tyrod Taylor and they draft someone on day 2.
Interesting. I didn't even think about that. I really don't know what we'll do. I don't know. I mean, I would think, with what you're saying, if anything, they would elect to give Jordan Travis the opportunity if that's the route they go versus drafting someone on day 2. I could see the Tyrod being the bridge. Then, hey, down the line, Jordan Travis is healthy. This guy would have been picked a lot sooner if he wasn't for injuries. Let's at least give him a chance. We know he can play winning football at a high level, as we saw at FSU. So, I could see that being the option if they do go your route. I do not think we draft a quarterback in the first round. I mean, I really don't know. I don't even know what I want them to do.
There's no way they draft a quarterback in the first round. There's no way.
Yeah, so, I mean, unless we trade up, which I wouldn't like. So, I don't know. I do kind of like that route. I would like to see Jordan Travis get an opportunity. That's something I really would like to see.
What would you think of a quarterback room of Tyrod Taylor, Jalen Milroe / Jackson Dart, one of them, and Jordan Travis? So you have 2 young guys competing behind Tyrod.
Sounds like I mean, I don't hate it. It just sounds like a headache where it's just like, a revolving door of quarterbacks, and none of the, those young guys never can really get their footing set because it's like they're always just looking behind their shoulder. So I don't love that aspect. But at the end of the day, at least this gives us options so we're not stuck with Aaron Rodgers for 17 games. So, I mean, that would be nice. Because this year, I mean, it was like you're not going to turn to Tyrod, and there's no young quarterback to put in. So it was kind of like let him play all year. If I'd prefer Milrow. I do like him a lot. I like his athletic ability. It's not really something we've had. And it seems like the NFL is going more in a mobile way, and he obviously is a very mobile guy. So it'd be kind of fun to see something new that the Jets really haven't had. Because looking back at our recent quarterbacks, none of them have been like super mobile. I mean, Wilson and Darnold had mobility, but they would not be that. And Tyrod, too, would be a good guy for Milrow to learn behind, too, because that's kind of what Tyrod came into the league as.
Yeah, Milrow's problem is his pocket awareness and his ability to throw the ball from the pocket and process defense. He would be right up there with Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels day one from a pure rushing threat from the quarterback position. He's got elite speed. I think he's going to run the 4.3s if he does decide to run, which I think he should. I think it could only boost his draft stock. But, he's certainly a project, which is why I think sitting behind a guy like Tyrod for a year wouldn't be a bad thing. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what route they go here. And for Aaron Rodgers, I was reading today, an AFC executive was like, I have no idea where this guy's going to land. I think he's going to retire because there's no way he's going to go to a rebuilding situation. But what contender would bring him on after seeing what happened with the Jets this season and the whole headache that comes with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, it is true. Like, outside of, Pittsburgh, I could maybe see just because it's like Mike Tomlin's not going to get bullied around and stuff and is an established coach. And it's like their window is right now.
And I think Rodgers would respect Mike Tomlin more so than a lot of other coaches.
Outside of that, I can't really, point to any teams that would make sense outside of that in the sense where they're in win now.
Yeah, right.
Do you know of any other opportunities? He's not going to go to a spot where he'd be the backup of the bridge quarterback. So he's going to a place where he could play all year or he's going to retire. So Pittsburgh sticks out to me. I guess it's still possible. The Jets are like, let's run it back and give it one more chance. But I don't know. That still is a very big possibility that they're like, hey, let's run it back. Because it wasn't like Rodgers wasn't great, but he wasn't bad either. He was just average. If it was really came down to the defense just falling apart. If the defense played consistent and was what they were supposed to be, which Aaron Glenn should fix, it could be better. I don't know. I still don't think we would have the firepower, but I would definitely think if you can fix a defense and get him back to being that top 10, top 5 defense, then yeah, you have a chance.
Yeah, because you look at the market and it's like, what better options are there? Darnold's not going to go back to the Jets. That's not happening. There's really not much out there, right?
No.
And the supply does not meet the demand. We talk about this a lot. Not enough top-tier quarterbacks in the draft. So I can see him running it back with Rodgers, honestly, because they're like, you know what? Let's give it another shot with a new coach here, setting the culture, and perhaps it works out. If it doesn't, just move on to Tyrod. You know what I mean? Or Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on. The Jags finally fired Trent Baalke, their GM. This is after Liam Cohen, the OC for Tampa Bay, which after Ben Johnson said no to the Jags, and then Liam Cohen said no to the Jags, Shad Khan made this move. He said a couple weeks ago it would be, quote, suicidal to let go of Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke. I guess 2 weeks later, he decided that was a stupid comment. And clearly the reason they did this, and the Jags are getting bashed on NFL media today, just completely getting made fun of, calling it a dumpster fire. How do you make this move 2 weeks later when you dealt with the same situation the last time you're going to hire Doug Peterson, where it was more difficult for you to get a coach with Trent Baalke still in the building, right? Fast forward a couple years, you're in the same situation. You're going to keep Baalke again. Everyone and their mother knew it's going to be difficult to get a coach when you have a GM that's already gone through 2 coaches, probably on the hot seat, and someone that you're not aligned with. I don't know if people just don't like working with Baalke in the NFL, but I don't know. That's what it seems like. And for Shad Khan to make this move now, it almost seems like too little, too late. Now you got to re-examine your search. Baalke was your guy, your right-hand man in making those decisions. Now I think the Jags timeline is all thrown off. Very interested to see who their coach will be. It looks like Robert Saleh is probably the leader in the clubhouse right now.
Well, enjoy it, Jacksonville. No, I mean, it does make sense if all these guys are backing out. And, I've always been a proponent of you want to match the GM and the coach on the same timeline. And, that's what they would be doing now. So it seems like the smart move to me, pair them together. I mean, otherwise, if year one doesn't work out and then the coach is like, well, you didn't even give me a GM that, I could come in together and grow with. So I do like that for the timeline sense. I do wonder now if Liam Cohen now becomes interested now that Baalke's out of there.
Well, the Bucs gave a nice pay raise to keep him in-house. So
yeah,
if Baalke's gone, I mean, it's interesting. Does Liam Cohen now re-engage with the Jags, or did he just totally pass up on that situation?
Or that's what I meant, Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen, I meant.
Yeah. But is it regardless of Baalke, he didn't want to go to the Jags? It's tough. They got Trevor Lawrence. You know what I mean? Like, it's certainly a better spot than the Raiders are in or the Saints are in.
Yeah. No, it should be interesting. But, yeah, that they get Saleh. I mean, it's looking good for Saleh. Like, he probably will get a job as as a head coach.
And as we mentioned in the pod a few weeks ago, the fact that the Jets just totally collapsed after they let go of him kind of boosts Saleh's stock a little bit.
I also could see, it's been floated around because he's from Detroit, him taking the DC job of the Lions, which would be funny, too, that him and Glenn are basically trading spots.
Yeah, dude, fucking Dan Campbell's going to have to redo his entire staff because, like, the Lions defensive line coach, who Dan Campbell said was the best D-line coach in the football, just took the Pats DC job. And now you think Aaron Glenn's going to poach guys. Ben Johnson might poach guys. I mean, he's going to have to bring a lot of dudes in. And if you look at now, we know that they turned it around in year 2 under Dan Campbell, but common denominator, those 3 seasons where they were at least good was Ben Johnson. When Ben Johnson came in, that's when they started winning games. So we'll see how those Lions look next year. Clearly, they're loaded on paper, but changing both coordinators is never an easy task.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder, too. I wonder if Mike McCarthy for the Jaguars.
Yeah, McCarthy.
Did you see that?
I think McCarthy's probably the leader for the Saints job right now. But who wants the Saints job? I think that's easily the worst.
Yeah,
There's $70 million above the cap. I don't even know how that's possible when you look at their roster. They just keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, but their GM is a whiz.
Yeah, he's a whiz because he's like the Dodgers, defer the money and push it back.
You should Mickey Loomis should be like a hero to you in the finance game. Like, you probably look up to that guy.
Yeah, honestly, I should
start
looking into more of what he does.
I mean, dude, the guy somehow makes the cap work every single year. Like, the dude
honestly, Howie Roseman should be the guy everyone is studying and how he manages.
No, I understand that, but this guy's just like from a pure numbers standpoint, like he's a whiz when it comes to making the math work.
He is. He absolutely is.
Like, Howie's a great GM in a different way.
Because he makes it all work. He also makes the money work too.
Oh, he makes the money work, but players,
the Eagles roster with all those stars, he could pay Saquon Barkley. The Giants couldn't. It just doesn't make sense. But
speaking of the Giants, real quick, did you see that clip of your GM's Joe Shane's son saying we should trade up and draft Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, that was from Hard Knocks.
I know. I was like, Hard Knocks could not have been a worse thing for the Giants.
No, it was the worst thing possible. No team's ever going to sign up for that again because now all the memes are John Mara like this, grabbing his face when the thought of Saquon being with the Eagles. You're talking about Jaden Daniels when they're talking about the quarterbacks, and they ask, would you guys move up for him? Brian Daboll goes, yep, right away, no hesitation. Daboll knew. Then on draft night, he asked each of his family members, who would you take? And he goes, Jaden Daniels. He goes, all right, who else? He goes, you only get this job once. He's right. The kid knew Jaden Daniels is going to be that guy. Yeah. And I think it's safe to say the best rookie quarterback season of all time.
In fairness, I don't think they could have moved up. Like, the Bears
they weren't moved.
Were not trading anyway. So at least it's not like you could have got him, but that's funny. It's just funny how it worked out.
I know. Washington was never going to move that pick. New England was never going to move 3 unless you
even if Washington were to move that pick, they're not giving it to the Giants. They're not trading. There's no price you can pay that they're trading to their rival the rights to a quarterback that they'd have to play for years.
100%. 100%. And this is just like the Giants are a year late to be picking number 3. honestly. And it's because Tommy DeVito won those games last year. It's because Tommy DeVito beat New England. Tommy DeVito beat Washington, right? And those two
give
teams
Drew Lock his
second and
credit.
third.
Give Drew Lock his credit. He beat the Colts.
Hey, I'm talking about last year. Why
I'm just
they
talking about this
sixth.
year. Give both your guys their credit.
Hey,
you guys got shitty quarterbacks that win when you don't want them to win, and when you want them to win, they can't win.
But it might not matter in terms of a quarterback. The last piece of news: the Titans said today, one of their higher ups in the front office, they won't pass on a quote generational talent with the number 1 pick. Well, Reagan, I wouldn't consider Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders a generational talent. People would consider Travis Hunter, perhaps Abdul Carter, a generational talent. There's no point for the Titans to be throwing out smoke screens at this point. They have the number 1 pick. Does not matter. Are they lying?
Yes.
They got to take a quarterback at 1, right?
They're probably just gassing up their guy. It probably is a smoke screen too. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, just because you have the first overall pick, you don't want to give any team behind you any type of ground or anything like that. So they want to make all the teams. I feel like it's just some gamesmanship. I mean, when have we ever seen a team picking number 1 overall, like say way in advance who they're taking? They never do.
No,
so
they don't say who they're taking, but
they always put out smoke screens.
But yeah, I don't know if they put out smoke screens with the number 1 pick. It's usually just radio silent. That's why I thought it was interesting at this point of January.
Yeah.
One of their executives saying they won't pass on a generational talent.
Well, I saw from that quote, Hunter went from plus 1,400 to go number 1 all the way up to like plus 150 or down to plus 150. I'm like,
he's plus 150 to go 1 now?
Well, yeah, dude, because everyone probably saw that quote and like, think about all the dumb motherfuckers out there that are probably throwing all their money on that.
I can't believe it moved from plus 14 to plus 150. I mean, if Cam Ward moved to plus, like even more plus money, I'd highly consider that. That's crazy.
If
you get Cam Ward at plus 250, plus 300, like
I think he still is the favorite. I think he's like plus 100 now. I think he was minus 200 now. He's plus 100, and I think Shedeur is like plus 500 now, which a little bit of value in that. I feel like.
Wow, that's a crazy. I didn't even know that line movement, but that is wild.
I saw it on Instagram today.
All right. Well, that wraps up the news.
Crazier since then. Honestly, it might even be crazier from this morning. But hey, Z.
We got Zach today. No Drock in the house. We got Z in the house. What's up, brother?
What up, fellas?
What's up, brother?
Ready to get into some questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. First up, all of these quarterbacks this week have a high rushing upside. Who will have the biggest impact with their legs?
Who asked the question?
Caleb.
What's up, Mr. Around the Bases? We got around the octagon, around the bases, around the felt. All the whole family's here. So out of the 4 quarterbacks, who will have the biggest impact? Well, right away, Hurts obviously is a beast with the legs, but you would have to think he'll be at the bottom of that chart just with
the knee.
The knee. I would put, honestly, like it might be a little crazy, but I might put Mahomes 1 just because it seems like in the playoffs, his legs, and while it's not going to be in the traditional sense of, he might not be running for 50, 60 yards, but what he's able to do scrambling and making plays is just unheard of. So, and it always seems like in the playoffs, like you're about to sack him and then he makes like a crazy play and then hits Kelsey. And I know you were talking about that last pod, but his legs are just next level, just makes something out of nothing always. And it just goes to a whole nother level come playoff time.
Yeah. So Mahomes, in terms of rushing plays that could potentially have the biggest impact, you could certainly throw Mahomes in that number 1 slot this upcoming weekend. He only had 14 yards rushing last week, but to your point, Reagan, last year he had games of 41, 19, 15, and then 66 in the Super Bowl, which was pretty crazy. Yeah. So in the way that he tiptoes those sidelines, and as we were talking about the other day, and draws those penalties, that doesn't count towards rushing yardage, but it certainly affects the game in a big way when you get 15 tagged on. I think the quarterbacks whose rushing ability is most important to their team's success this week will be Jaden Daniels. I wouldn't be shocked if Jaden Daniels outrushes Josh Allen, but I like your point, Reagan, where Mahomes could have the most clutch runs. But hey, Josh Allen could too. Josh Allen could convert a 3rd and long at the end of the game in Arrowhead and really change the dynamic. But I think it's going to be difficult for Josh Allen to run in that Chiefs defense. They played each other so many times. I think Spags would be ready for the QB run.
Well, that's true too. I mean, I obviously, if you're just going off of like which guy will end up leading the weekend in rushing yards, it's Daniels or Allen. But I do like that point with Allen and, the Chiefs defense being familiar and Spagnuolo will have a better game plan. But I would point to Allen and Daniels because not only that, I think both teams will be trailing. So there'll be a lot of passing situations where they get out of the pocket, scramble, and pick up some yards with their legs. So, and I wouldn't be shocked if, one of those quarterbacks pushes 100 yards this week on the ground. Allen or Daniels. Mahomes won't get to that point.
No.
I'm not that crazy, but.
All right, next question from Caleb. Nobody has been able to stop Saquon yet these playoffs, but will the Eagles need to focus more on the passing game to defeat the Commanders?
No. Commanders have a bottom 5 run defense. Both times Barkley went against this defense this year. He ran for over 140 yards and had 2 touchdowns in both games. Historically, in Barkley's career, he has been the Commanders' kryptonite. They never have been able to stop him. I think with Jalen Hurts' knee now being an issue, yeah, you're going to limit Jalen Hurts' running here, but it would not shock me if Barkley gets over 30 carries, and I think that's the blueprint to win this game. The Commanders have been better against the pass and the run this season. I think you stick with what got you here, and that's Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and also, I talked about it last week, the Lions still averaged over 8 yards a carry last week in a losing effort, and that's not with the game script being in their favor where they had to pass the ball a lot.
100%. They're playing from behind the entire game. They let up 28 points in the second quarter. And they still had 8 yards of carry and ran for over 200, Reagan?
They did, yes. And, Jahmyr Gibbs obviously is a very dynamic runner, and Saquon Barkley is definitely a very dynamic runner. So I would expect him to have a game. And guess what? If Washington is to somehow bottle him, well, that's why you have, a top 10 tight end and 2 top 20 receivers. And even A.J. Brown might be a top 5, after this year. Probably not, but still, at the end of the day, he's the number 1 on pretty much every team in the league. So that's why you got all those other weapons. So I'm not worried about it. If they do figure out a recipe to limit Saquon, well, guess what? Go stop A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert now.
Yeah, and Saquon Barkley's rushing total is the highest ever on books. It's 129.5.
Jeez.
I parlayed Barkley to score at 100 yards, and it's minus 120.
Oh, jeez. I would probably,
Yeah, dude. It's crazy.
I'm not going to lie. I just wouldn't even touch that. That just doesn't seem worth it to me.
He just breaks off so many long touchdowns. It's inevitable.
No, I understand that. It's just the odds for what you need. It's just so much. And it's I don't know. That's something I'd stay away from. But odds are, yeah, he does hit that.
All right. Now we have a couple questions from Crampton. First off, what LSU Big Three would you rather have for the rest of their careers? Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas, and Malik Neighbors, or Burrow, Jettas, and Jamar Chase?
Ooh, that's a great question. Rest of their career. So we're taking age into account here, right, Reagan?
Yeah.
Now, I know those other guys aren't old. Jettas is 20, 25, 26.
Yeah.
Chase is 24, 25. Burrow's 27?
Yeah, yeah. And even, I think, Burrow's 28, but still for quarterback years, he's young.
Yeah.
I believe Jamar Chase is, I think they're both 25 or 24, Jamar Chase and Jefferson. I'll look that 24. And then Jefferson is, I believe, 24 as well. He might be 25. Jefferson's 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 24,
Jaden,
25, and 28.
Jaden's 23.
No, Jaden's
Neighbors
24 now.
Oh, he's 24.
Yeah.
Neighbors is 21. Brian Thomas, I think, is 22.
Yeah.
But, I have to go with Burrow, Jettas, and Chase.
Really? I'm going with the young guys, but I want to hear your case first.
I'm going to go Burrow, Jettas, and Chase. And I know it's really pick your poison here. It's just we've seen Jefferson top 1,800 yards. We've seen Chase win a Triple Crown. We've seen Joe Burrow go to a Super Bowl. And it's just been 1 year for all these guys where, the future certainly looks insanely bright. Probably the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers as rookies this season. You could argue the order. The number 1 rookie quarterback potentially ever. You could certainly, I don't hate it, but I'm going to go with the guys that have been there. They've done it. They've already led the league in these categories. They have multiple All-Pros under their belts. They've made the playoff runs. Give me those guys.
So for me, the big reason I am going to go with the younger guys is look at the quarterbacks that Chase and Jefferson have had throughout their career and even in their rookie year, because I know the rookie years are very comparable for these guys. You're playing with, yes, it was a young Joe Burrow who obviously got injured, but still you got Joe Burrow most of your career. And then for Jefferson, it's mainly been with Kirk Cousins, while the other guys.
Oh, don't act like Nick slang that thing Mullins wasn't dicing it up to Jefferson. That's your boy too, bro. Now you want to conveniently leave that out?
No. I'm just saying, but most of his career was Kirk Cousins.
All right. And Josh Dobbs also he was the beast with Josh Dobbs. Quarterback proof.
Okay. Anyway, then you look at what they were able to do in their rookie years. And you look at Brian Thomas, he did it with half Trevor Lawrence, half Mac Jones. Very bad quarterback. And then you look on the Giants side of things. Woof. 3 bad quarterbacks. Rank those guys
4.
1 to 3.
Don't disrespect Tim Boyle.
Oh, shit. I forgot about Daniel Jones. No, I did forget about Tim Boyle. Something like that. Some sort of legend. Hey, he played in the NFL. Can't take that away from him.
I said don't disrespect him, as if you left him out of a bad quarterback combo.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, it really impressed me what guys were able to do in their rookie year. And then Jaden, the fact that he's already in the top 5 discussion, in my opinion, and I think your opinion, and probably a lot of people's opinions now, that he's even in the discussion. I mean, he's 1 game away from bringing his team to a Super Bowl. I don't care the fact that Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl and put up all these crazy numbers. The fact that Jaden Daniels is like almost in the same conversation of him as him in year 1, that was really the deciding factor, because it's like Joe Burrow can put up all these cool stats and stuff, but he wasn't able to get his team into the playoffs this year. And I know, it's a team sport. It comes down to the defense. He put up crazy numbers, but you know what? A lot of those crazy numbers come when your team's trailing all game and these teams are running fourth quarter prevent defenses. And, he lost some big games early on, and that's now 2 years in a row he hasn't gotten his team into the playoffs. And if you compare Washington's roster to the Bengals roster, Bengals still have a way better roster on paper. So, man, Jaden Daniels doing what he's doing in year 1 just tells me that this guy has the potential to, get to Patrick Mahomes level.
Something that backs up your point too. Jaden's got 1 legitimate weapon in Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, dude, it's
he's got 1 legitimate weapon, and that offensive line was one of the worst in football. Now people don't really talk about it as much. It's certainly improved. They made some additions. They brought in Bobby Johnson, the O-line coach, who never seemed to fix the Giants O-line. Hey, maybe perhaps we should be talking about sacks as a quarterback stat, and how Jaden Daniels is so good at avoiding pressure and avoiding sacks, and how much that's boosted that offense.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. It's not like Burrow had a good line in year 1, but that was the big storyline. But Jaden somehow has just been able to, put a Band-Aid on that offensive line, because I would say it's still better than what Burrow had, but still. I mean, that was the deciding factor is Jaden.
All right, guys, and the final question before I head out, also from Crampton. Should the 2027 Dynasty picks be valued heavier than others due to the likes of Jeremiah Smith, Arch Manning, and Ryan Williams?
100%. And this is no secret in Dynasty world. I know multiple people spanning multiple leagues that are already trying to stash 2027 picks. And it's no secret. Everyone's going to be valuing those picks higher because everyone wants a ticket to Jeremiah Smith. And on a lesser extent, Ryan Williams, who's going to be a beast, and potentially Arch Manning. Arch Manning could declare next year. He says he wants to stay 4 years. I do think Arch Manning is actually going to stay and start for Texas for 2 seasons.
Probably although on the draft.
Hey, if he does what he's supposed to do at Texas next season, he'd be the number 1 overall pick next year. But yeah. Arch Manning would also be the number 1 overall pick the year after. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's that level of quarterback prospect.
What team is at 1? If it's where Uncle Eli played, maybe he declares. But if
so you're saying potentially he would leave Texas early if the Giants have the first pick next year.
I'm just saying teams like the Giants. I'm not saying the Giants. That's just an example. Like, I think it depends on the teams. If it's the Cleveland Browns sitting there at 1, all right, maybe we go back to Texas. If it's the New York Giants, okay, maybe we enter. That's all I'm saying.
Very interesting conversation.
I think it definitely depends on who's picking number 1 overall.
Yeah, but that's a conversation for another day. But
yeah,
I mean, everyone's valuing these 2027 picks higher. And when you look at like this draft, like I have a bunch of 2025 picks in my one Dynasty league, and I'm like, I really don't love the position I'm in because it's just not that good of a draft class compared to last year. It's not going to be as good as next year, even though next year is not necessarily a phenomenal draft class. 2027 is phenomenal. You want those picks.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say that. I mean, I also think you could probably leverage it because, we're all in leagues with people that don't realize that. So, and I know, from talking with you, you're in some leagues where, some of them are a lot of sharks and some of them are a lot of minnows. So in those leagues with all the minnows, you go and take advantage because if you can play it like, hey, yeah, I'm trying to do something. And, once it gets closer to the draft for this year and people are getting desperate because they're horny to make a couple draft picks and maybe the guy doesn't have any. It's like, well,
you get a little excited.
I'll give you some 2025 picks and, you give me some 2027s and, you talk to them like they're stupid and be like, you're getting a good deal. You're getting a good deal. And you take advantage of them, you pounce on them, and you start stockpiling those 2027 picks. Because, honestly, there's not a ton of guys in this draft coming up this year that move the needle for me. I mean, I would think Genti will be a beast. Ollie Gordon's kind of a sleeper to me. There's a couple other guys that I like, but overall, it sounds like that 2027 class, is going to be stacked. And just think there's going to be some bigger names that we're not even talking about right now that'll come out of nowhere. And it's like, so if we already have those few names, there's just going to be more by the time 2027 rolls around.
100%. I'm seeing Nick Marsh too from Sparty. Go Sparty.
Aiden
I'm
Giles.
also seeing people are saying that like this year's pick number 3 would be worth like pick number 8 last year, where you could have gotten a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. Who like Brian Thomas Jr. would go number 2 in this draft. 100%.
Yeah, well, that is all the questions for today. So I'll catch you fellas later.
Thank you, Z.
Thank you, Mr. Z.
Peace.
All right, Reagan.
Mr. Z.
That was great. Appreciate the questions, fellas.
Yeah, it was good seeing Z.
Yeah, it was good seeing Z. Haven't seen him in a long time. It's been like 4 days, but all's good in the world. We got 2 games to break down, man. It feels really weird being like, oh, we only got 2 games to talk about. The whole grueling season, 16 games, many weeks. Now it's only 2. But here we are, championship weekends. Starting us off Sunday at 3 o'clock on Fox. So Tom Brady, Kevin Burkhardt on the call. I'm looking forward to listening to Brady. I thought he did a good job last week. I know he's caught a lot of heat. But do you like Brady in the booth?
I don't mind him at all. I mean, it's good to hear from guys that, have played the game too. I mean, I don't want to take away from guys that haven't, but it's definitely, just a whole nother level of expertise when it comes to it. And yeah, there's guys that are probably better than him that have never played the game, but it just brings a different perspective and insight. And, obviously he's won and Bennett played in so many high level football games. It's cool to get his insight.
I agree. I do think he needs a little bit better flow though.
Yeah.
I feel like he says 4 words and then pauses and does it on repeat. Now that I say that, I want you to think about it when you're watching the game on Sunday, right?
Yeah, I've never noticed that.
Everyone listen. Brady will say like 4 or 5 words and then like pause and then say 4 or 5 words and then like give a slight pause. If you're listening, fire back in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree and let me know if you pick up on Sunday because it's something that I've really noticed. But I do like Brady. Regardless, we got the Commanders at the Eagles. The 3rd time these teams will meet this season, obviously. Eagles, 6.5-point favorites. I thought that was a pretty juicy line.
Very
to be
juicy.
honest with you. In their previous meetings, the Eagles beat the Commanders 26-18 in Philadelphia. On the road, in which Jalen Hurts got hurt, and it was the Mariota show, Commanders won 36-33. That crazy comeback. Jaden Daniels scored. Well, he threw it.
Wait. What do you mean the Mariota show? Are you talking about Kenny Pickett?
Oh, I'm sorry. Kenny Pickett.
I was like, wait a second. I'm like, did I miss something?
Mariota's the backup for the commies. Yeah,
that's why I was like, did I miss something? And Daniels got hurt too.
The Kenny Pickett show, and then he got knocked out. It was Tanner McKee too, right? That was a Tanner McKee game.
Tanner McKee, Philly legend.
So the Commanders won at home, but it took Philadelphia's backup quarterbacks, and still their defense let up 33 points. But 6.5. That's the line. I think it's pretty fat, to be honest with you. The total is 47.5. Actually, the total is 47.5 for both games, oddly enough. But Reagan, I know you're taking the Eagles. You predicted them to win the title in your bracket. Here you are, though. Championship weekend. You did not expect them to play the Commanders. What are your thoughts on the 6.5? Do you think the Commanders can cover that? Or are you so gung-ho on the Eagles, you're going to take them to cover?
The clock has struck midnight. Okay? Cinderella.
I'm you mean for
the
Jaden
clock
Daniels.
Has struck midnight. Yes. This story's awesome. It's great to see the rookie quarterback getting it done. I mean, and he's been the most impressive rookie, to make it this far. Out of all the rookie quarterbacks that have ever, been in this situation, most of them got carried by good defenses. He's the rare exception where his defense is just average, and a lot of it's been on his play. But I just think Philadelphia is a whole nother beast, and people could be like, well, so is Detroit. Well, Detroit was very injured and very banged up, and they made some mistakes. I think Philadelphia is going to play this game a lot smarter. I think they're going to establish a run early. I mean, they fully converted this offense to a run-first team, and that is Washington's weakness, and that is Philadelphia's strength. So they're not going to try to be like, hey, let's turn Jalen Hurts into a pocket passer all of a sudden and make him throw the ball 40 times, especially now with the knee injury. So I think it'll be the same game plan as always for Philly. Their defense is playing at an elite level. Looked really good against the Rams in that snow game. I know it got a little dicey there at the end, which is a whole other thing where I never understand why, if you have your foot on the gas pedal and the offense you're going against can't move the ball, then when you get a lead, you decide to take it off, and then those teams just go and drive downfield. And it's like, yeah, don't give up the big play, but they end up driving downfield in 4 or 5 plays anyway because you're just like playing such a soft defense. So, I really like Philly's defense here. I think this will definitely hit the over because I think Jaden Daniels is good enough to put up some points. But I think it'll end up being like 35-21 here in terms of Philly. And I think Saquon will have a big game here. And guess what? If Washington somehow adjusts, well, that's why you got A.J. Brown. That's why you got Devontae Smith. That's why you got Dallas Goedert. And that's why you got Jalen Hurts, who is a very good quarterback. And I think he will get another crack at the Super Bowl. And hopefully this time, when his Superman efforts happen, it works out differently for Philadelphia. But also got to stick with my team. My gut took them before the season, or took them actually before the season to make the Super Bowl. And I also took them in my bracket challenge to win. So I will be remaining with my gut feeling on Philadelphia. But what did you take, mister?
Yeah, you got to stick with the Eagles. I was really going back and forth on the spread. I'm taking the Eagles to win for sure. I initially was going to go with Washington just because of how hot that team is, how hard they're playing for Dan Quinn, how they do feel like a team of destiny to us in a sense, and how good Jaden Daniels has been. But what swayed me was the game they played in Philadelphia when they were held to 18 points, when Jaden Daniels only threw for 190 yards. He had a touchdown and a pick. When Jaden Daniels was contained to 7 carries for 18 yards in Philadelphia. And when his leading receiver was Austin Eckler, 8 for 89, and his leading wide receiver was Terry McLaurin, 1 catch for 10 yards. That is not a recipe for success. And I don't see how they're going to hang as many points on this defense as they just did on Detroit. I don't see how they're going to slow down Saquon Barkley. I mentioned it earlier, 140 yards and 2 touchdowns in both games against this team. They didn't adjust the second time. They weren't able to contain him. I don't think they will the third time.
And honestly, like that was with Kenny Pickett too, where it's like you can, really get away with stacking the box because Kenny Pickett's no Jalen Hurts. You don't have to worry about the mobility, and you're not too worried about him beating you with his arm. So it's a lot easier to even stack the box.
100%. And we just saw the Eagles handle the Rams, which a very dangerous team. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith didn't do a thing, dude. Like, seriously, did not impact. I mean, maybe Devontae Smith converted a couple third downs. A.J. Brown caught a slant and converted a third down. I think that's all he did on like a 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 4. Like, they didn't even need to use those guys. It just shows how deep and talented this offense is. And, yeah, dude, it's just really tough for me to take a rookie quarterback to win another one. I mean, I did not think he could beat Detroit, and I really tipped my cap, and I really wanted to go with the Commanders, and I am rooting for them. But the last time they were in Philadelphia, Jaden Daniels had one of his worst career games. Unfortunately, I don't see him having one of his worst career games here, but it's not going to be Superman Jaden this one. I know Walmart's going to be pissed at me for this, and I'm pissed at myself because I can't stand the Eagles, and I'm really rooting for the Commies here.
I was going to ask you that, like, as a Giants fan, like, who would you rather see win? But you just answered it.
Dude, so a lot of Giants, like, beat reporters have put out polls this week. Like, who are you rooting for? The Commanders or the Eagles? Every poll with thousands of votes is at least 95% Commanders. That's a consensus amongst Giants fans.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the new age because if you ask the older Giants fans, they actually hate the Washington more than they do.
Yes, because
Philly. That's they the were old like rivalry.
Yeah,
like going back 80s, 90s. So the older Giants fans will probably tell you the Commanders
I think
But
since like probably the early 2000s when it was like McNabb and like those guys, I think that's when it kind of flipped in the Eagles. I mean,
yeah,
I thought for a while growing up, it was Dallas was the most hated. I think in my mind, just going to school in South Jersey, it flipped for me in college to the Eagles the most hated. I think now that Barkley's with the Eagles, it's consensus the Eagles are most hated.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, So I mean, also, I guess it's just a whole different story. It's like the underdog aspect. I'll be rooting for Philly because I'm a Jet fan. I'm kind of a Giant hater, and hearing that 95% of Giants fans want the Commanders to win, why not add some more pain, baby? And I will say one thing about the Commanders that does scare me, and it has nothing to do with football per se, but it's more so the fact that they just seem that like destiny is on their side, where they get all the bounces, they get all the luck. It just seems like the Hail Mary, blocked field goals. It just got the voodoo magic, like the fumbles roll their way. Even last week, I mean, winning the turnover battle 5-0. It just seems like they have all the luck on their side, which is not something that's repeatable. It reminds me of like that Minnesota team a couple years back where it was just like all the close games they were winning. It seems like all the bounces were going their way. And then the next year, it just completely flip-flops. So that scares me because it just seems like every week it goes the Commanders' way.
I know, but at some point, Reagan, this, as you mentioned, the clock will strike midnight. Hey, maybe it's in 2025 later on this year, and they start losing those close games next season, and they do win this one, and somehow they win the Super Bowl, right? It'd be crazy.
Yeah, how about that? I mean,
it would be wild. It would be wild. The Commanders Super Bowl champs, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean,
God.
I was, talking about the whole conspiracy theory with the Eagles and the Chiefs, but the Bills and Washington would be a rematch too from back in the 90s. So think about that. If the Commanders went against Buffalo and beat them in the Super Bowl again, that would be pretty rough for Buffalo fans, because I believe I was either the first or the fourth. One of those four that Buffalo lost was to Washington in the 90s. So that would have to sting extra to lose to Washington again in a Super Bowl.
100%. Well, we're both on Philadelphia to win and cover this week. I really wanted to go with the Commanders. I just couldn't do it. Especially with it being in Philadelphia, the way that defense has looked, how they don't even need to use their star wide receivers to win football games. It's crazy. I don't care if the Commanders are going to stack the box here. That offensive line is going to impose their will. The Commanders are one of the worst run defenses in football.
Yeah. Any props you like? I know you talked about the Saquon.
Yeah, I took Barkley 100 and a touchdown last night at -120. I am expecting that line to get much worse by game time. If you want to take any Barkley props, you got to do it now. Like, you got to do it as early as possible, because the closer it gets to game time, the more juice it's going to be, because everyone's going to take Barkley. We haven't seen a Jalen Hurts tush push touchdown in a little bit, but now with the knee, I think it's stay away from that. And given what we've seen from A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, like, you could try to pick your poison on which receiver is going to have a big day, but I'm not digging that either. I am going to go back to the well with what I said last week. I was on Dallas Goedert, 30 receiving yards, or maybe 35, and that's smacked with ease. So I think I'm going to go back to the well with Dallas Goedert over receiving.
Yeah, I'm seeing right here it's at 40, so it's definitely not bad. Actually, Diami Browns is at his 40 for him is -145. That's interesting that he's kind of had this.
That seems very high. I know he went off for like over 80 against Detroit last week, but this Philly secondary is on a different level.
Yeah, if anything, I would like Ertz. Ertz at 25 is -170, and at 40 it's +145.
What about Ertz revenge game anytime touchdown?
Yeah, looking at the touchdown scores, I also saw that you can actually get if you think Saquon and the Eagles are going to be in the Super Bowl and you like anytime touchdown score, you can bet now him at +105 for the Super Bowl. And then if they lose, then you lose the bet, but you get obviously juicier odds because he's -230 in this game. So I saw that and I was like, that's interesting. If you really think the Eagles will make it and you feel confident that if they make it, Saquon will score, take it now.
I was also looking at Super Bowl MVP futures to like try to, try to get some juicier odds now. Barkley was +425 for Super Bowl MVP. Hurts was +550. So give the nod to the running back over the quarterback there. You can't even take Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't even make sense because the Chiefs and Bills are both +225 to win it. And both guys, Super Bowl MVP, were like +240. So it was like, you're not going to take that extra little bit of juice on taking the quarterback when they'd probably win it. But hey, maybe But,
You just better
maybe
off taking the
someone
team.
like a defensive player makes a really clutch play that wins the game. Like, you know what I mean? It's just it's
Or
not
like
even worth
Travis
taking him.
Kelsey's still possible. I'm not
Yeah,
going
it's
to
not
rule
worth
him out,
taking
or
that.
if the Bills run the ball down, who's ever, like, if it was Bills versus Washington and James Cook just cooking with Cook. So
Yeah, Cook goes for like 180, and it's like, you know what, he would get it. So it's not
Yeah.
even worth taking those guys. But yeah, that is
Mhm.
interesting. All right. Any more props? You want to move on to the next game?
No, we can move on. I just wanted to talk about it briefly, see what you thought. I mean, it is crazy. Like he is plus 105, and even like Saquon, you can get him at plus 650 first touchdown score right now. Like, that's just funny to me that
Saquon plus 650 first touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I would not take that. It's not even that good of odds to take it.
No, that's just funny to me that you could get that right now.
All right. Bills, Chiefs. They meet again in the postseason, but they also met this season when the Bills handed the Chiefs their first loss back on November 17th. This time around, the Chiefs are in Arrowhead. This game is not in Buffalo like earlier in the season. Chiefs are a 2-point favorite, total 47.5. Back on November 17th, the Bills won 30-21 in Buffalo. However, these teams looked a lot different. Chiefs didn't have Pacheco, didn't have Hollywood Brown. There were a ton of injuries. No Matt Milano for Buffalo. So a bunch of key pieces back for both teams here. I mean, you said it earlier in the week. You're going with the Chiefs. It's hard to go against them, Reagan, but elaborate.
I'm going with the Chiefs here. And, the biggest reason is until Josh Allen can prove to us that Patrick Mahomes is not daddy, I'm not gonna change my opinion. They can beat him in the regular season. That's great, but they have not been able to get over the hump. So I'm just going to stick with, what history tells us. And history tells us that Kansas City always finds a way. Patrick Mahomes is always slightly above of Josh Allen and always gets it done. So I just find it hard to believe that it'll all of a sudden go different, especially where, you look at this Kansas City team. It's one of the best teams they've had. Or on the Buffalo side, you can look at it and say this is probably one of the worst rosters Josh Allen's had around him during his prime. So to me, that makes it even more difficult because, for all this year, it's like, oh, look what Josh Allen's done with, the lack of weapons around him. Well, I think that might just come and hurt them in this game where it's like, oh shit, like, Kansas City's defense is swarming it, and all these weapons that we talked about all year that aren't good, but we're kind of protected by Josh Allen's success. Oh yeah, like now we're seeing the cracks in the armor. So I think that will hurt them. I ultimately do think Kansas City actually might get this done by double digits. And, that second half for the Bills really scared me because they really didn't do anything. It ultimately just came down to some really, really bad turnovers from Baltimore. I mean, the two from Lamar in the first half, terrible. And then like an untimely Mark Andrews fumble. And even then, if he gets that 2-point conversion, I mean, Baltimore's defense was playing on fire that second half. They may get a stop and go kick the field goal, and we might not even be looking at Buffalo. So, that to me tells me that Kansas City, a veteran team that's not going to make the mistakes that Baltimore did, just as talented as Baltimore, will not let it get that close. And I think they can steamroll them because that game was close with Baltimore making some bad mistakes.
Speaking of mistakes, going to lead into my point here. I'm also taking Kansas City. I predicted Kansas City make the Super Bowl before the season, just like you did with Philadelphia. I predicted the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl in the bracket challenge. I got to stick with it. And I did predict this matchup. So I got to stick with the Chiefs. Although this is another situation. The other game, I'm rooting for Buffalo. I'm rooting for a Buffalo-Washington Super Bowl. That's my heart. I'm picking these with my head and with what I said preseason. I got to go Kansas City. As much as I would love for this to be the year Josh Allen gets over the hump, how are you going to pick against the Chiefs? You know what I mean? How are you going to do it? No one's been able to beat them in Arrowhead in the postseason. No one could do it. And last year, the Chiefs went into Buffalo and beat them, right? And this Chiefs team is better. This Bills team is worse, as you mentioned. In their last matchup, you talked about mistakes. Patrick Mahomes threw 2 interceptions. He threw for 196, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Mahomes does not throw 2 picks in playoff games. Does not happen. I don't see that happening again, right? They didn't have Hollywood Brown. Kelsey was non-existent, which we know in the postseason, Kelsey is never non-existent. Kelsey's going to get his. He always does. He did last year against Buffalo in the postseason, right? I expect Kelsey to have a much bigger role. Kareem Hunt was You know what? Kareem Hunt's been Pacheco's been It doesn't fucking matter. Mahomes is going to make the plays. Xavier Worthy was still coming to his own, but he was their leading receiver with a touchdown. Worthy's been on fire recently. I expect Worthy to keep that up. Kelsey will be better. Mahomes will not throw 2 interceptions. Those are all positives for Kansas City. For Buffalo, Josh Allen did use his legs very effectively, had 12 for 55 and a touchdown. We mentioned earlier, I'd expect Spagnuolo to have a better game plan to try to contain Josh Allen and his legs in a playoff matchup. He threw for 262 with touchdown and a pick. I mean, that's okay. It's okay. It's an okay stat line for Josh Allen. It's nothing special. But when has Josh Allen really lit up the Chiefs in recent memory? Like, actually lit them up? I think it's back to when
it was the overtime loss.
The overtime loss, when he didn't get a chance in overtime with the 13 seconds where Mahomes hit Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, right? In that game as well, James Cook had 2 touchdowns but had 9 carries for 20 yards. This Chiefs team is really difficult to run the football on. Ultimately, I think the Chiefs will win the turnover battle, and I think that's going to be a massive part of this game. I would expect this to be close. I'd expect it to be low scoring, and then I think in the second half, the Chiefs pull away and get a double-digit lead. Josh Allen's going to try some heroics, and unfortunately, I think Josh is going to throw a pick late, which will seal the deal. The Chiefs will be able to bleed the clock out. But when you look at, we talked about it with the refs and the penalty yardage, and it's like, statistically, the past 5 years, the whistle goes the Chiefs' way. It just does. You can hate it all you want. I hate it, but it's a fact. And that's what we've seen. The Chiefs just don't get penalized as much. Josh Allen is fighting such an uphill battle here. I think the Chiefs play much better than they did their last outing. They're at home. They beat everybody in Arrowhead in the playoffs. Until someone does it, it's hard to go against the Chiefs as much as I want the Bills. And 2 points seems like a good spread, but I'm fine laying that because I'm fine with the Chiefs winning by a field goal. Although the Chiefs do get a lot of weird, cheeky scores because they don't blow anyone out. They kick a lot of field goals. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 19-18, like some weird shit, right? Like, and they don't cover 2. But no, I don't know. I think 2 is a pretty safe bet here, and I'll take that any day of the week with Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game.
Over under, like, penalties called on unnecessary roughness penalties against the quarterbacks. 4.5's the line. You taking over or under?
I'm gonna take the under because I feel like you got to think Roger Goodell and the higher ups in the NFL are aware of all the outrage of these penalties. I feel like they're gonna say something to the crew. I don't know, but it's also like I don't think it's gonna sway the game enough where if it actually would be pretty ironic if there were more penalties called in the Chiefs than the Bills this game. Like the week that everyone starts making a big deal about it. I could see it happening, low key. I could see it happening just because of that. It's not what we've seen historically, but it would be kind of funny. All the talking heads like, oh, it's unbelievable. It's getting obvious. The Chiefs get way too many calls. And then like the next week, like there's a huge like roughing the passer call on Josh Allen that like determines the game. And I don't see that happening though. I got the Chiefs, man. I got the Chiefs -2. They're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you know, one sneaky prop I like is Kansas City to finally score over 33 points. Over 33? Yeah, because that was the big mile, or was it 30? What was the big milestone?
30.
So plus 190. I'm sorry, not 33. Plus over 29.5 plus 195. Could it be this week?
It's not even that juicy.
What does that tell you, though? What does that tell you, though? What does that tell you, though? But, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to take away a ton of credit from the Bills defense because, you know, Matt Milano being back will help a lot. But, I mean, I think Kansas City's just got to figure out a way to get that run game going early. I mean, whether it's Pacheco or Hunt, I mean, neither guy's great, but one of them will have to get it done for certain.
You know a prop that I like a lot? Xavier Worthy anytime at plus 185. I took him last week. It was the same line, 185, and he caught that shovel pass and got tackled at like the half-yard line. That was tough, but Worthy's been scoring a lot recently. They clearly love using him in the red zone as like a gadget player, and he scored last time against Buffalo, and he's only gotten significantly better since then. I think Worthy at plus 185 is pretty juicy. Is there a Bills touchdown score that you'd be interested in? It's just so tough to pick with this team.
Ray. I could see Keon getting in, honestly.
Ray Davis is plus 600.
Yeah, no, I'm joking about that. I could see Keon though getting like a jump ball and coming down with it, like especially like later in the game. It's like, you know, they're trailing a little bit, and Josh just throws one up, just like a prayer, and then he comes down with a big jump ball towards the end of the game.
Plus 350 for.
Yeah, that one kind of sticks out to me. I kind of like it. I kind of like that. Key on the rock, bruh.
The last time they met, it was Curtis Samuel scored, Josh Allen scored, and James Cook scored twice.
I do like Allen a lot. What is he even at? I mean, it's just like now that he's become such a tush push guy, it's like almost seems like a lock.
He's minus 120. That's a pretty good line.
Yeah, it's because he's become like a, you know, and it's funny because
he does
so many
tush
people.
Push.
It is funny how so many people shit on Hurts for that, and then Josh Allen, it's like nobody even like bats an eye about how many tush push touchdowns that guy gets now.
No,
it's
I know
like
no one talks
not
about
an issue. It's like not an issue now, but for Hurts is like known as the merchant. But I don't know for certain, but I wouldn't be shocked if Josh Allen had more tush push touchdowns this year than Hurts did.
It's an interesting conversation. I mean, Allen's just a monster. He's 6'5", like 260. You know.
No, I don't blame him.
You're not going to stop him.
I'm not blaming it for using him. It's just funny how people just like act like he just like ignore the fact that he does it so often. Like I would do it too. And I never understood why people complain about it. Like why even it's such a safe play. Like, yeah, he can get injured, but like in terms of like chances of like losing it and not converting it, it's such a like safe play. Like why would you not run it? Like if my team had a quarterback like that, I'd be like, run that every single time we get on the 1 yard line.
Travis Kelce's receiving yardage is 70. Now,
that's
60,
high, but
60 plus was plus money last week. I got 60 at plus money. Now it's up to 70 is the line after what he did last week, and he is a playoff merchant. So would you take Kelce 70 plus? I feel like that's going to be probably the most common prop put into parlays by the public this week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, I would take the over. I mean, that's one I would stay away from. You know, I would try to pivot to some of the other options, like Worthy sticks out to me. You know, maybe Hopkins and the fact that everyone's going to be like, he had one target last week and, kind of forgetting about him, but he's still a veteran wide receiver. So, and this is a big game. So I would expect Mahomes would, try to go to him a little bit, especially if they try to take Kelce away.
Worthy's at 50. Hopkins is at 25, dude. 25 yards for
That's
D-Hop.
another thing too. Like it's not you're not asking much, and that was the same thing last week with Cooper Kupp. It's like with some of these guys, like veteran wide receivers, at the line's that low. It's just like I got to go on the side of history and be like, look, this guy, can still put up elite performances, and come playoff time, like they're going to go to the veterans. They're not going to be like, let's give the young guy a chance. And that's kind of why last week when Kupp was like 35 or whatever it was, I was like, dude, like that is low.
Yeah, that is insanely low. What do you think about Patrick Mahomes' rushing yard line? I want you to guess what it's at.
24.5.
That is the exact line. That a boy, dude. Mathematician. Yeah, 24.5. That is high for Mahomes, but clearly the books have caught on to him running the ball in the playoffs. We talked about it earlier where he might not be the lead. He's probably not going to be the leading rusher from the quarterbacks this week, but he does make a lot of plays with his legs in the postseason. It just seems like it's either going to be like 15 or like 50, He's not as consistent, but when he does it, he booms.
Well, he'll probably be at like 35 and then take a couple kneels and just miss out.
Yeah, and
that's the thing you always got to remember.
He takes a couple step back too. He's not just burning 1 yard on you. He'll burn 3.
Yeah, he's doing some what is it? Some backwards lunges, getting the leg workout in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Reagan. That wraps up our 2 games for this week. Man, dude, we still got an hour pod in though, because that's what we do.
Oh, that's what we always do. But guys, come on, we still got this crew necks on sale. Go buy them.
Buy them up. Like, subscribe, hit us in the comments, ask some questions. We love responding to everything in the comments. Let us know your thoughts. We're excited for the games this weekend. Hope you guys are too. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. Thank you, everybody. You want to say thank you one more time?
Thank you, everybody.